Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to talk about Arnold and specifically variance techniques. A good way to get a natural look out of your renders is to make sure not every object looks exactly the same. So we're going to learn all how to do that with Arnold in Cinema 4D. Let's get started. Hey everybody, it's Chad here from Greyscalegorilla, where we give you the tools, training, and tutorials you need to make yourself a better motion designer. Today's video is all about the Arnold utility node. The Arnold utility node has lots of different ways that you can use it, but today we're going to cover how to use it to create variance. Variance across many different objects that are controlled with one shader. It's a really cool technique. I think you're going to love it. Let's jump in. Hey everybody, I'm back, and here we are in Cinema. We've got Arnold cooking, and we're ready to get rocking on this. So, variance. Variance is a really important thing when you're doing any sort of shading. You want to have every object be just a little bit different than the one next to it, because in life, in nature, nothing is exactly identical. So this tutorial is going to be a real broad stroke intro, and then we'll dive into some deeper stuff later on in this video. But right now I just wanted to start off with something really simple, like the concept of color and varying color using Arnold. So here we have some Lego bricks. We've got red going on. The client does not want just red bricks. They want all the different Lego colors that they expect. And we need to do that for them. But I don't want to have separate shaders for each single color, because I want to be able to adjust the specularity and maybe the bump map or whatever all in one shader and not have to dive into 5, 6, 7 different shaders. So that's why this technique is powerful. So let's go ahead and open up this material. We've got an Arnold standard material, pretty basic. It's red, got a little speck going on, got a real simple lighting scene. So what we need to do is we need to make each one of these different. The first thing you're going to want to do whenever you're doing this sort of technique in Arnold is use the utility node. Now later on I'm going to show you some other techniques that will use the Alshaders, but for this one we're going to start off simple. We're going to use the utility node. The utility node is a really powerful node in Arnold, and it can do lots of different things, but for today we're just going to be using it to do some variance. So we're going to set our shade mode to flat, and we're going to set our color mode to object ID. Now, if I look at the output of this utility node, meaning that I just plug it right into my beauty, you're going to instantly see that every brick has a different color. Now, this is not going to work for us if I piped this into our diffuse color and then look at the output of the shader. Yeah, they're all different colors, but they're not Lego colors. Lego has very specific colors that they've given me, and now we have to match these colors. These are definitely not it, but we're close. We're definitely closer than we were before. Okay, so what do we do next? Well, I want the ability to change the seed that's picking these colors, and I want to be able to do that easily. So I'm going to go over to my little search window here and type in random, and I'm going to pull out a random node. And this random node, I'm going to make sure I set it to color, and then I'm going to put my utility, plug it right into the input of the color, and then I'm going to change my input type to color. Yep, that's all good. So now let's look at the output of this, and now I'm going to just start hitting different numbers in my seed. And you can see I'm getting different colors each time. This is going to be good for me when I'm later on, maybe I'm just trying to decide on a ratio, or maybe I just want the ability to change that seed and get a different result. All right, so now that we've got the ability to randomize these colors that the utility node is giving us, we need to tell it very specifically what colors to use. So with that, I'm going to grab a ramp RGB, and let's go ahead and plug that right into my beauty. And right now it's just going to be black. It doesn't really know what to do. So I'm going to use the random output and use it as an input of my ramp. Now I'm going to change my interpolation from smooth, because we got a lot of gray values here, and we want this to be no gray values. We want these to be, set this to none, so that we're getting a very harsh fall off, which means it's either going to be black or it's either going to be white, depending on this random utility node here. In fact, if I hit random seed, you're going to start to see these all change. So we're pretty close, okay? So I guess I could probably come in here and like add a bunch of handles to this ramp and try to figure out the colors, but one of my favorite things to do with a new ramp, I don't know when they introduced this, maybe it was 16 or 17, is grabbing the color from picture. So if I have that selected and I just go ahead and navigate to this picture that the client sent me, now these are all the Lego molding color palette for 2016, and you can see it gives you this little crosshair dropper thing, this little picker, and if I move that anywhere, if I put it over a color, it's going to grab that color and put it into my selected ramp handle. So a few of them will be black, so that's fine, and I want some of them to be red, but now I'm just going to start adding more handles here, and then I'm going to grab a new picker and just go ahead and start populating this ramp with colors that I'm picking from the brand guidelines that my client sent over. All right, we'll just add another one here, maybe the green, and I'm just kind of doing the more traditional Lego colors here. The gray is always good, and maybe one more, and this one will grab white. Yeah, there we go. And right now we've got a lot of the yellow, so I'm just going to start to favor some of these other colors to get them to show up. That's looking pretty good. So look at that. We've instantly got our Lego color set. In fact, we could save this as a preset if we wanted to. I already actually saved it, but I'll save another one. We'll just call this Lego colors, and we'll say yes to override. So now we can use that again and again and again later on if we're doing another Lego job, what have you. We don't have to redo that work again. So now that we have the colors selected, I can come in here into my random, and I can just start to, click around, changing my seed to get a different result until I find something that I like. That looks pretty good. So now we're ready to plug this into the diffuse color of our shader, and let's go ahead and look at the output of that. And let's make sure that we're also pushing this into the subsurface. So let's grab it and put it into the subsurface color so that now we're getting the correct color in the subsurface. And even while it's still rendering, I'm just going to go ahead and change the seed until I get a few more red bricks in there, because I really like the way the red bricks look. In fact, I'm going to make sure that I get a few more red bricks just by favoring the red a little bit more in this ramp. Perfect. Great, so that is a quick and easy way to get some variance, but to also determine the color that you want to put into that variance. So let's move on to the next technique. Once you start to wrap your head around variance and how it can really make your renders feel more realistic, you start to realize there's lots of other places that you can put it. For instance, in this scene, we have a really simple sci-fi floor tile going on. We've just got a bunch of tiles cloned. We've got one shader that's going to be driving all of this stuff going on the floor, the different shades of color, the different amounts of reflectivity, the different glossiness. This is all going to be driven in one shader. So how do we do that with the techniques that we've already kind of talked about? So let's go ahead and open up the shader. And let's just start from scratch with this. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything down. And now we're just going to have this kind of generic black tile. It's got a little bit of specular, a little bit of roughness, Fresnel, of course. We need to add some variance to this. So again, using the same techniques that we've been using throughout this entire video, we're going to grab utility. We're going to go ahead and look at the output of that, and let's make it flat and change it to object ID, which is good. And now we want to add our random. So this gives us that ability to change it up, because we like to change our minds. Let's pipe that in there. If I could actually grab the handle. Let's put that in the color input, make sure this is set to color. Let's go ahead and look at that output. And now we have the ability to kind of change this out a little bit. All right, great. All right, what do we want to do next? Well, we want to vary all kinds of different things. I want to vary not only the color, but the weight of the specular and the roughness of the specular. So the way I'm going to do that is through one of my favorite nodes. It's the range node. Now the range node is pretty powerful, very self-explanatory actually. What it does is it has an input range, and an output range. That's it. So right now, if I set this into my input of this range, and I just go ahead and look at the output of that, you're going to see that we're getting an input of 0, output of 1, input min of 0, output max of 1. That's great. Okay, so we're not clipping anything right now. Now, for my own sanity, I don't want to see I don't want to see RGB. I want to see luminance. So I'm going to change this to luminance. So I'm going to grab an RGB to float, which is just going to convert. It's a conversion node. So let's do RGB to float and drop that in and put that into the input. Put this guy into the input there. And let's change this to luminance, okay? So now we're just looking at luminance. And you can see I'm still getting the random still working perfectly. Great. So now that's going into a range. Now you're going to see what this range is going to do. I could actually clip this range out to, let's say maybe 0.2 would be the brightest it would ever become. Now I'm going to have to linearize this because it's not going to show it to me properly right now. But for right now, I think it's fine. I'm not going to worry about it too much. And well, let's go ahead and do it anyway. I'll show you how to do that. Linearize, just type LIN. You're going to want to go ahead and make sure this is set to gamma and to 0.454. And let's look at the output of that. And oops, sorry, it's going to have to be 2.2. Now this is correct. Now what we're looking at is about what you would expect. The highest it's going to get is 50%. The lowest it'll go is 0. The input is 0. The input min is 0. The input max is 1. And we can clip this down to 0.45. And now we're getting very little variance. Or we could have it go from 0 to 1, where we get complete variance. All right, so that's set up, and we're liking that. Now, what we want to do is, what do we want to drive this? We want this to drive, let's have it drive the weight of our reflection first. So right now, 0.66 is where I had my shader to begin with, and I kind of like that number. So I'm going to go back into my range, and I'm going to say the output min should be a little bit lower than 0.66, so maybe 0.45. Then the output will be a little bit higher, so maybe like 0.75. So now let's take that and put it into our specular weight. And let's go ahead and look at that shader. And now we're getting a little bit of variance in the specular weight. So each one is a little bit different. Now I could just split off this range and put it into all the different attributes, but that's not going to give me the control that I need. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that my utility stays the same, but I am going to want to copy my random because I want to be able to change the random seed on each little output that I'm going to use. So let's pipe this into a different random. Put that into the color input, and let's make sure that is, let's zoom in here, it's a little hard to see. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to grab another RGB to float, and again, I'm just holding down control while I drag. And let's grab that guy, and we're going to grab another range, and this one is going to be a different value, but we will put our linearize in there just so that it's correct. All right, so this one I want to drive the roughness. Now, the roughness I like at 0.3, it's pretty good. So let's go, we're going to put our range a little bit below 0.3, so to 0.25. Actually, I'll go a little bit lower because I want some of them to be pretty shiny. So I'll do like 0.15. And then the highest, the roughest value will be like a 0.4. And let's go ahead and use this in our specular roughness. And let's look at the output of that shader. And something along the way got screwed up here. Okay, that's correct. And let's make sure this is set up right. I think that we've just got a bit, we're grabbing not enough roughness here. So let's grab this back up to like 0.3. That's better. And let's have the highest it goes to 0.5. Good. So now we're getting a real nice variance in the roughness on each tile. Now, the only thing left to do for me now is to create a little random variation in the diffuse color. And I am going to do that the same way. I'm just going to actually pull off a random, and I'll pull off a, actually, you know what? I'm just going to do random, and then I'm going to pull this off. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Let's pull that into there. And I'm going to grab a mix node. It's another node I tend to use a lot. And we're going to have this drive the input of that mix node. Let's go ahead and look at the output of this. And just so you can see what it's going to be doing, I'll go ahead and change that. So now basically our diffuse is grabbing anywhere using this map as a mix node. It's going to mix between black and red on this mix. So it's going to give us these varying values of this red. Not really what I want. Don't want red, so I'm going to change this to bring the saturation down, maybe bring it to about 50%, maybe a little bit darker than that. So this is going to be my new diffuse color. And so I'll just pipe this right into my diffuse color, and we'll look at the output of that node, and this will give us everything that we need. So right there, we've got complete varying tiles with one shader, where we could always come in here and change the seeds on any of these to get a completely different look, completely different arrangement of each one of these parameters. So when you start to really understand how variance works and how to use it, you can see that, with one shader you can create a really robust look without having to, having a million different nodes or a million different shaders sitting in your material editor. So it's really handy for doing complex scenes that have a lot of different parts and pieces. Maybe you don't want to have a million shaders. You want to have like one shader for your metal, but with varying levels of roughness. That can really go a long way in terms of getting that realistic quality without having a ton of shaders. So let's see what's next. Okay, so here's another interesting use case for this technique using variance. So in this scene, you might do like an architectural scene or something where you have like a wall of photos and you need to put different pictures on every frame, but you don't want to have 10 different shaders, and you don't want to create one map where they're all UV'd out in different places because client might change their mind, whatever. So how do we do that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at this shader. And I know what you're thinking. This looks a little complex. It's really not that complex. We're going to start from scratch and rebuild it. So you can see here we've got a standard material, we have this ramp, and then we've got all these images piped into this ramp, which is kind of weird, I know. And then we've got our random like we had in the previous video, we've got our utility, which of course we're going to need to drive the randomization. So let's build this from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and actually I'm going to reopen this shader, and we're just going to delete all this stuff. And when that happens, we're just going to be left with this green color that we'll just turn all the way up here in our diffuse in our pictures. So let's get rid of that. Let's grab a utility node and grab our utility node, throw it in there. Let's look at the output. Let's zoom in a little bit. I feel like we're a little bit far away. And let's look at the output of this utility node. Let's set it to flat, and let's set the color mode to object ID. So now we're getting somewhere. Now at least we have a bit of variance in our color, but this is still not going to be what we want. So the next thing we're going to do, like we did in the previous video, is going to grab that random node. And I like to use this because I like to change my mind a lot. So I might come in here and switch this to color, and let's look at the output of that. And now I can sit here and change the seed until I find some sort of, configuration that works for me. Okay, that works. All right, so let's take our random node. We've got our standard. Now, how do we get all those pictures to show up onto these picture frames? Well, let's grab another ramp. So let's grab a ramp RGB, and let's go ahead and look at the output of that. And we're going to drive it with our random here. So there we go. We're going to turn our smooth knot to none. And now we've just got black because we've got black taking over the entire ramp here. Now, if you look down here, you're going to see this little area down here that's going to say load textures from folder. So if I select that and I actually navigate to the folder in which I've got these pictures, which is going to be in my Arnold Variance pictures, texture pictures, I'm going to say OK. And now it's looking to that folder where I have all these different pictures, and I'm going to say load textures from picture, and it's going to bark at me that the number of color inputs does not match the amount of textures in the folder. That's fine. We'll just say yes. And instantly it gives me all of those pictures that were in that folder. loaded in as image texture nodes, and you can see them right here. I'll load in a second here. Takes them a little while. There they are. And each one is different. Each one is coming from that folder and being piped in to one of the gradient handles. Now it automatically spread the gradient handles out for me, and then that is then being output to the shader. So look at that. We've got different pictures happening in every single picture frame. It's great. And we can actually come over here, grab our random, and change the seed until we figure out which picture we wanted where. I kind of like, there, that one's nice. Actually, let's try a few more. That one's pretty. That's a good combination. So with that setup, you could then throw this into the standard diffuse color, and let's go ahead and push that out to the beauty. And there you go. So you can actually use images. These don't have to be picture frames. This could be grunge maps. This could be anything. And it automatically distributes these for you. And if you want to delete one, go ahead and just pull one out. Delete it. No big deal. So it's a really handy way of putting a bunch of image textures onto one material and being able to control them all right there. In fact, now that this is all in one kind of controllable area, I could throw a color correct node on in between all of these images and my standard diffuse, and we could make this black and white just by bringing the saturation down. Or we could do this just for a few of them. Like maybe we find one that we want to make black and white. Let's try, this one's nice. So let's go ahead and copy this guy, and we'll throw him over here. Oops. And let me just delete that, put it in the input. And let's go ahead and make sure that's piped in correctly. And we'll go ahead and bypass this one. And now we've got one black and white picture and the rest are color. So it's a really kind of nice contained way to get variance. And it's a really useful technique. All right, so for the final part of this video, I wanted to show you another way of doing variance using the Jitter shader, which is part of the Alshaders system that Anders Langland's put out for free. I'm going to put a link down in the description. He has all kinds of great shaders here for all different applications supporting Arnold, and they are really powerful nodes. Shaders, nodes, noises, things like that. But in particular, we're going to take a look at his Jitter node for this leaf scene. Now, these leaves come courtesy of Turbosquid. I'm going to put a link to the model down below. And let's say that we have this nice autumn scene with all of these leaves sort of falling in our viewport, but we have one leaf texture and we want to make it look really natural and random. So how do we do that? So let's turn on the IPR in Arnold here, and let's open up this shader. You can see we've got a pretty basic shader. We've got the leaf texture map going into the diffuse color. We've got a bump map going into the bump 2D. Now we need to add some variance to this. So let's grab the Jitter node, Jitter, and if you just look at it, you can see that it is expecting an input. It has a minimum saturation, maximum saturation, min gain, max gain, and min hue offset, max hue offset. So what this does is allows you to put in an image or a color and sort of randomly change these values based on this signal number right here. So we're going to approach it very similar to how we approach everything else. We're going to grab our utility node, and we're going to dump that into our scene. And let's go ahead and look at that. And we're going to change it to flat. And again, we're going to change the color mode to object ID. And there we go. Now we have our random colors. And let's see what happens when we push this into our signal of our Jitter. And let's just pick a color in our Jitter. Let's just make it red. And you can see that it's all plugged in correctly, but we're just getting one value. We're just getting this kind of orangish brown color, which isn't really working. I think, let's think about this. Well, the utility node is actually outputting all of these colors, but the Jitter signal node is expecting a signal much higher than the numbers that we're giving it. it wants something closer to, let's say, 100 or 500 as far as a value. So we need to remap the values of these colors to that higher value for Aljitter nodes, the Aljitter color signal input, to read it correctly. So let's do that with a range. Let's grab another range, and we're just going to put our utility into our range input, and we're going to change our range from output 0 to 1 to output 0 to 500. And now if we plug this into our signal, we're going to see a correct distribution of that jittering. So now if we come in here and we change our min, let's just bring these all up to 1 and 1. And I just want to do it with hue offset. So we're going to do a hue offset. And now we can see that we're getting correct jitter and it's looking good. Now we're ready to start using this with our leaf texture. So let's take our leaf texture, which is right here, and we're going to plug that into our Aljitter node input, and let's go ahead and look at that. And you can see it's already, I've got it randomizing right now. It's at a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 1. That's way too much hue jitter. So I'll probably bring this to like 0.15, maybe something less than that. It's getting a little bit too yellowy green right here. So let's try like 0.1. And now we're getting a little bit of variance, but I want to be able to change the seed. So again, I'm going to grab that seed node that I like, the random node, and I'm going to put that in here and plug this into the color input, plug the output right into that range, and now I can start to click around here. Let's grab the color, and now I can just kind of click around here and see what that how it's being randomized. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's see what else we can jitter. Let's try to jitter the saturation. Maybe the min saturation is 0.8 and the max is maybe 1.2, or maybe it's 1.5, or maybe it's 2. Let's go crazy with it. And then the gain, I'm going to bring down the max, or the min gain is going to be 0.5 and the max gain will be 1. So now we're getting some of those really pretty yellow and red colors that you see in the fall. So now that we've got the color going, we can put it right into our color diffuse, and let's output our main part of the shader here and look at everything together. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. And you can see here, Arnold has this really cool little feature called backlighting, which if I turn this down to 0, you're going to see that the higher this number, the more it's going to feel like a translucent, almost like paper thin material. So if I bring this up to like 1, you're going to see the light kind of creeping through these leaves without having to use any sort of subsurface scattering. Cool, so that looks pretty good. Now let's take our random seed and just start clicking around until we get something that we like. That looks pretty good. So with one image and the Aljitter node, and of course the utility, we've got a pretty robust system here using one leaf texture to make it look like a bunch of leaf textures. So imagine if you use the same technique over your bump map, or maybe over your roughness, or any other sort of map that you might want to try to create more variance. It's really, really useful.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe if you like what you see, or stick around and watch some of the other videos that we got going. We're putting out a lot of great content this next couple months, so you're going to want to watch them all. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.
The Macbeth chart.